Hey guys, how's it going? Josh here with the bio for Cyclops. Now, I'm actually really happy that Cyclops won, so I can do his bio, for two reasons. First one is because I actually really like the character. He's probably my favorite original X-Men besides Iceman, but also just the fact that like characters like him, Spider-Man, those characters that have been around publication-wise for decades, they have a really long history, and character bios really helps for characters like these. Like character bios, they help for new characters like Silk too, but for the New 52 versions. But for the most part, characters like Cyclops, Spider-Man, Professor X in general, like those older Marvel characters, Fantastic Four, those really benefit from character bios because a lot of people don't know their history because they've been published for so long. Usually they don't recap their history, you just kind of know what they're about. So in this front, I'm going to try my best to condense their history while leaving in the important things. I might touch upon, some things I don't have, listed visually on here. So listen to the whole thing. I hope you guys like the bio. So let's get right into it. So part one of his origin. So Scott Summers, that's his real name. He was born to U.S. Air Force test pilot Christopher Summers. Now, if you've been following the Cyclops in the all-new Marvel Now, his solo book, which follows the younger Cyclops, not the modern-day Cyclops, a lot of time travel, timey-wimey mumbo-jumbo stuff went on with the X-Men during Marvel Now, but his father is actually kind of think of a space pirate, basically. Think space pirate, but we're not there yet. But his father, U.S. Air Force test pilot, and his mother, his name is Catherine Summers. She wasn't a test pilot. She didn't really do anything noteworthy, so to speak, to be listed. When this was published, a lot of females at the time, like wives, they didn't really do anything noteworthy, as bad as that sounds. But that was just, time period. This is 60s. But anyways, he also had a younger brother named Alex. He technically also has another brother, but we won't talk about him because he was a secret for the longest time. And because we didn't know, but it turns out Catherine Summers was pregnant with another baby. But anyways, it's not really important to Cyclops' origin, just thought I'd mention it there. And Alex, yes, is the one who becomes Havoc. So in case you're wondering, who Alex becomes. But anyways, while they were flying in their private plane, one day they were going on vacation, the Shi'ar Empire, which is one of the, multiple empires in the Marvel Universe, attacked them. Now, obviously, this has nothing to do with Scott, it's more so with Christopher Summers, but during this, Scott's mother pushed him and his brother out of the plane with the parachute, which you can see in the image there, and this actually initially awakened Scott and Alex's powers, but mostly Scott. Now, the impact from the fall caused minor brain damage, taking away Scott's ability to control his powers. Now, I don't want you guys to think that Scott just started shooting out beams everywhere. It was more so like he was falling. During that desperate moment, his mutant powers activated and he shot a beam, which kind of decreased the force of, when he ended up hitting the ground. He kind of broke the fall, so to speak, a little bit. But he still hit his head, he still felt, and had brain damage. But he still saw normally. His powers weren't fully activated yet. This was just kind of something that made them happen for the time being, because he wasn't fully matured yet. He's like around 10-ish, 11 years old, I'd say, at this time. The government found them, sent them to the hospital. While at the hospital, Scott, his powers activated again, and they blew the roof off the building he was in. And at this moment, Mr. Sinister, who is, if you read the X-Men comics, he's practically everywhere, especially once you start getting to like Apocalypse stuff, Archangel. But anyways, Mr. Sinister took a liking to Alex and Scott, separated the two, took Scott to his facility under the guise of like a home, like a boys' home, like for kids to be adopted, and also put Scott under a year-long coma. And Scott's powers continued to develop. He started getting headaches, things like that. Like usually mutants get headaches and stuff as a sign that their powers are coming. So if you have a headache right now, you may be a mutant. But anyways, Mr. Sinister kept experimenting on Scott, and that's how they actually found out that the ruby quartz could keep his powers at bay while also allowing Scott to see. So he got kind of not the visor, but he got the glasses. Eventually he ended up running away. There's different stories about this, about how he ran away. They don't really matter. The biggest point is that he ended up with Charles Xavier after leaving Mr. Sinister, and he was the first of the eventual 5 X-Men. As you can see in this picture, we have Beast before all the fur, Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, Angel, and Iceman. And then, Scott helped recruit the rest of the X-Men, becoming the team leader. And he also became a son to Professor X somewhat. Not a literal son, but out of all the X-Men, including Wolverine, stuff like that, I'd say Jean Grey / Storm kind of had the most daughter relationship with Professor X. And I know there was a moment in comics where Jean Grey, Professor X's relationship was kind of weird. I'm not really going to go into that. But even though Storm's is more mentor-mentee kind of, Scott, Professor X, definitely they have a very father-son kind of dynamic, which ends up playing really important to the character roles. When the writers have written stories with the two. So given the field name of Cyclops, due to the eventual advisor Professor X gives him, Scott led many teams of X-Men. X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, tons of teams. Even though he wasn't really a part of X-Force, but X-Factor definitely he was a part of that. He also married the telepath / telekinetic Jean Grey before she became the Phoenix. This is like really close to around when the Phoenix stuff started. Either it was around when it started or it was right after it started. I can't top my mind remember, but I want to say it was before she became the Phoenix fully. Like the Phoenix stuff was kind of there, but she didn't go full on Dark Phoenix and all that stuff. He did get married before then to someone named Madeline Pryor, I believe. But in the grand scheme of his origin, that doesn't really matter all that much, as bad as that sounds. Really, when you think about his, romantic love interest, you think about Jean Grey. Just like for Peter Parker, at the end of the day, even though Gwen Stacy was there, and I know a lot of Gwen Stacy fans will be upset about this, but at the end of the day, you think Mary Jane. So, for the sake of this bio, I'm not going to go over all of Cyclops' relationships, including Emma Frost. Anyways, moving on. After many years in trials, he became the face of the mutant movement, on similar kind of stance up there, basically, with Professor X and Magneto, especially because Professor X died for a while, and Cyclops really had to step in there. Magneto kind of faded back. He wasn't being that mutant extremist that he used to be. And, nowadays, Cyclops is considered a terrorist. He's considered the mutant extremist. Even though, looking back on the things he's done, Cyclops was right. You can quote me, Cyclops was right. Because really all he was doing is looking out for the best of his people. And he didn't intend on doing all these different, quote-unquote bad things. They kind of happened. Avengers did kind of react kind of hastily during the whole AVX thing. And when he became Dark Phoenix, he made a really good point when he was talking to Wolverine. He was like, when Jean Grey became Dark Phoenix, everyone like rallied behind her, and she destroyed a whole planet. But I become Dark Phoenix, and after all the good I've done in my time, everybody just kind of disregards me as a criminal. So honestly, his character is really rich, and that's one of the reasons why I really like this character now, because he went from your standard cut and dry hero, leader hero. He went from that, did a total 180, and for the lack of a better word, he became Magneto. He's the Magneto of our time, basically, which is really interesting. So let's get into his abilities. We have his Optic Blast. His Optic Blast is supposed to be limitless in power, even though there has been a few limitations shown. First one being during World War Hulk, when he fired it seemingly at full blast against the Hulk. But even though this was Green Scar Hulk, it didn't stop him. Green Scar Hulk kept rocking and actually grabbed Cyclops' face to stop the beams. But his Optic Blast can destroy a mountain, it's been said. And due to the power it's been shown, I wouldn't argue that at all. After that, we have accuracy and precision. Now this one's pretty cool. A lot of times it's like people are saying it's like spatial awareness, stuff like that. Even though it's not spatial awareness, Cyclops just has a knack, just like Captain America has the same thing with his shield. They just have a knack for aiming, their energy beam, or I guess their sword for Captain America, very, very precisely, very accurately. Just like Hawkeye can do with his bow, just like, Deadshot can do with his, not really his bullets. He can't really ricochet his bullets. But I guess Bullseye would be a good example. They're just really, really skilled and talented with, aiming it, hitting it off angles and all that stuff. And Cyclops has been very well known for doing this. He hasn't done it a lot recently, but in the more classic comics, I'd say probably in the 80s, he does it quite often. Also, you have energy resistance. Cyclops cannot be harmed by his or his brother's energy blast. This, it really depends on the writer. Continuity-wise, he can't be harmed, but depending on the writer, they might have him be harmed for dramatic effect. But technically, he shouldn't be harmed. He's also an expert pilot. They say that he picked up a lot of this naturally from his dad, But if you pay attention to the comics, the person that usually flies the Blackbird is Cyclops. Even in the movies, Cyclops, flew the Blackbird. That was kind of his thing, his baby, so to speak. And they kind of hinted at it in the cartoon for X-Men Evolution, where, he was working on his car all the time, stuff like that. That's his thing. So he's an expert pilot. He flew most of the X-Men missions, even though later on I think Storm kind of took over, flying. After that, we have Strategist and Tactician. Now, I really like this panel that you see, in the image part, because this lady's like, Plan B, and he's like, no Plan B, and, it implies we only have 26 plans. Scott, starting off as an X-Men very young, as their field leader, he learned, obviously, from experience, combat, making field, leading people in field operations, things like that, coming up with plans, strategies, tactics. He learned a lot of tactics. He's worked with people like Wolverine, who definitely is a really good strategist and tactician. Captain America, he's had to plan during AVX, fighting against Captain America. So I think, definitely a strategy, tactics. He's very, very, well experienced, well versed in those fields. And then last but not least, leadership and combat. Scott has led multiple X-Men teams since he was a teenager in other mutant groups. Currently, even though his group's called the X-Men, it's not really the X-Men, because honestly, he doesn't really have Charles Xavier's blessing, which you kind of need to be an X-Men, as far as I'm concerned, because the X is for Xavier. And he also, I found out, has multiple black belts. He has a lot of combat training. It said he can hold his own against Wolverine. That's not true. He can just not die against Wolverine more appropriately while fighting Wolverine, which is still, quite talented. But, Cyclops, definitely, hand-to-hand combat, it's there. So that's about it for Cyclops. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys like Cyclops' character. Hope you guys got interested in his character more than you maybe were before. Let me know what you guys thought. Also, don't forget to vote for the character you guys want to see. I'm going to update the bio, or not update the bio. The voting poll should be updated by the time this is up, so you guys can, vote, things like that. The next bio, I think it's Spawn, actually. It's either Spawn, Luke Cage, or one of the other characters. I know the tiebreaker got broken. I just can't remember who broke it. So, without further ado, see you guys on Thursday. CJ will be doing that bio, and hope you guys have a good day. Oh, hey! Hope you guys enjoyed what you just saw. I don't know what exactly you just saw, but I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you really did like it, go check out our other stuff. We have social media, Facebook, Twitter. The link should be somewhere here. Also, we have other channels too. We have our movie video game channel. We have our music channel. Obviously, our comic book channel too, because we do all that entertainment awesomeness. We also have a website. Go to our website, hybridnetworkyt.com. And check out our other videos. That's all I really have to say. It's Josh, and I hope you guys enjoyed what you watched.